So in the sense of DecisionOps here, if you think about the workflow in DecisionOps, taking that all in mind here, we want to reduce risk of having faulty optimization models in production or models that are not well performant. And in order to do that, to reduce this risk, you can use a bunch of our experimentation features and techniques to mitigate that risk. So if you look at the bottom of the slide, there's a baseline model and you have a candidate model. So you're iterating on the candidate model. You're running batch experiments in our platform to make sure that the candidate model is performing well and gives you good solution quality. Then at some point you say, awesome, this model looks great. I want to compare it against the baseline model. So you can start an acceptance test and define your own custom KPIs that you care about for your use case in order to compare the performance of the candidate to the baseline model. If that is all looking great, you might want to say, okay, this is already at a place where I might consider this as a production-ready model. So you can use our shadow test features to create shadow tests with your candidate model and still have your baseline model in production. What then happens is actually that you see parallel runs in your shadow model or in your candidate model here that are then tested in the shadow test. We are currently also working on switchback tests that you can use then in the future as well to get even further confidence in your model. And all of this leads nicely into a continuous integration and deployment workflow for your decision models. And that's something that Marius will now share in his next live demonstration here.
Sure. Thank you, Daniel. And sharing again. And now we're going to start in console. And I'm going to catch you up here 1 second with the app. So we looked at the demo app before. This is what I just pushed. So you can see that it's already also existing here, but we're not going to use it because it's not very complex. Instead, we're going to use an example of vehicle routing problem, solving a vehicle routing problem with our tools. And yeah, this app is more interesting, as we will see in a bit, to demo all these test workflows around it or the automated workflows around it. So, right, so this app defines an instance, like Daniel already mentioned, which is a production instance. And this production instance is the default, so all of our runs actually go to this instance. And this is interesting because we can split it into another instance, like development. And like Daniel mentioned, we're going to test everything with development before actually swapping out the production version. And the versions are, which is also interesting to see in this example, created automatically. So all of them have a Git char actually on them, because they will be, every time we merge something in our code, we will automatically create a version that we can later reference. And then you also find other things in the console, like your run history, etc., and the experiments. And that is actually something that we're going to get back to. So let's head over to the code. This app actually exists in GitHub and is managed here. And there are other things, so it's more complex. You will notice that it still has this main.py file for the entry point, but it has further source files in here in the app directory. It also defines some tests that are actually running automatically before merge. And then we also have a next move action, which is interesting to look at. And that is where we're going to head over to the pull request, because we have one open here. And this pull request changes the model. It introduces a max travel duration and a parameter to set for it, etc. Yeah, everything is fine here. We can merge it. All tests passed. And one thing that will happen as soon as I do this, it kicks off an action, like I mentioned, the next move action here. And this one in the background now does a couple of things, and let me explain that while it is running, because it takes a little bit to run. So this one will run on the code that we just merged and pushed. It will create, basically bundle and package our new app and push it to the platform, to the next move platform. And then it will also update the version inside of the development instance. So, and that instance we're going to use in a test, actually, to compare it against the production instance, which would be the baseline here. And yeah, like I said, this takes a little bit of time. it's a live demo. So maybe let me use the time to actually ask everyone here for some feedback. It would be actually really great to get some knowledge about the world that you live in. So we obviously live in a GitHub world and use GitHub pipelines here to a good extent, and can integrate this here nicely. But obviously you might be using GitLab or some different CI/CD provider, and it would be really interesting to know your world and how we could help. Because, for example, we could offer a GitHub action that you could more easily integrate, although this is not a lot of steps to get this off the ground manually, but something that we could make even easier. But it would be nice to have some feedback about that. Yeah, otherwise, this is hopefully finally done. I'm expecting like 1.5 minutes or something. And yeah, so this just kicked off the acceptance test. And if it's nice, it will also provide me with a link so that I can go there directly. And yes, nice. And it's even completed already. So I guess it was a little async. So this is an acceptance test, and we just merged our code, and now we're interested in, do we actually want to deploy this? And for this, we defined a couple of KPIs and the directions that we expect them to go, either not changing or basically should decrease. For example, we are looking at, again, at a VRP, so we're minimizing travel duration and other things. And so we expect our objective value to decrease, or that is the direction that we wanted to go. Activated vehicles, we actually want to increase. So let me pick one of these. We already can see that all of them are green lit, so it behaved like we expected it to be or to do. But let's pick one of them because they're actually more interested in the details. Also, especially if it wouldn't behave as expected, it's really interesting to dig here a little bit for more results or more details. And what you can see here is the development instance against the production instance on a number of 7 inputs. And also even in the scatter plot, like comparing both of them on the same metric, which is activated vehicles. So you can see the development instance uses more vehicles than the production instance, which is on the x-axis. So every one of these inputs falls in the upper half of this diagonal. And this is exactly what we want to happen. And to show you that this is actually also happening, and also to show you how you can use this feature even further to debug. So let's go to the actual runs, and on one of the inputs here, the Stefan 6K, we're going to look at both the results, the production result and the development result, and see that the behavior is in fact what we saw there in the acceptance test. So you can see the visualization here on the right side. This is the solution of the production instance. And as you can see, there are a lot of vehicles only having 2 stops, which is actually just start at the depot and stay at the depot. So we're not actually using them. So, and this result uses 2 vehicles only. And the development instance instead uses all of the vehicles. So that's why we can see all the activated vehicles going up across the board. And this would give you more insight. So cool. So this already tells us that acceptance test is passed. So we're fine with the result here. That builds us with some confidence, but maybe we're not completely convinced because the acceptance test actually works on an input set that we defined at some point. But we could be thinking about, well, our new production data could be different now. And for that, we offer a shadow test. Let me copy this name. So I'm creating that one next. And the shadow test is really easy to set up. We just use a baseline instance, which is production, what we want to compare against. And again, the development instance is our new candidate. And we're going to define some end condition for this shadow test, which is going to be 10 runs, and then just start it. And this is a really interesting way of building confidence as well, because, and I'm going to head over here just to explain starting a script, because this is obviously just a demo app, so this doesn't really receive any runs except for mine. So let's spawn some runs here and run them in the background, send some inputs to the endpoint, and in the meantime, look at the results of the shadow test, which is doing a comparison of production instance against development instance on new inputs. So this is live data, this is new data, and we can safely test them side by side without, let me reload, without actually putting a production into danger in any way. So it's still started, still running. We see the first 6 runs already came in here, and we can see all the different metrics again, like the value, or let's do the custom activated vehicles, which we looked at before. So we're using more in development than in production, and everything as well here behaves as expected. So I'm actually convinced that this is fine. So I'm not going to wait for this to complete, but instead already put the new version into production. And I'm simply going to do this. This is really quick by using the same version that we just tested in development, and go to the production instance, edit it, and select this version and save it. And this is it. Now it's already in production, and we updated production, so every new run will go to this new version of the model. And exactly as I updated it to the new version, I can obviously also revert it to the old version if something goes wrong or anything happens.